All right, guys. You keep asking about the Void Vampire build, and I've done about as much dissecting of this thing as I possibly can. So today we're going to crack right into it and see if we like it. All right, chat, you heard it. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, come back and hang out with us on Twitch, and we'll see you in the next video. All right, guys, you keep asking on stream about the Void Vampire build. Love the name, by the way. And I don't think I can put this thing off any longer. I think we finally have it made. I've done as much testing as I possibly can. I've spent so much money crafting gear to get the build perfected and put this thing to the test. And so far, I love this build. The Void Gauntlet is so much fun. It can be used to supplement heals. You can use it with a life staff. You can use it as a melee weapon. You can use it as a ranged weapon. It's so diverse. It's so much fun to play with. And I think it's a great addition to the game. Once they fix all the bugs and like the hit reg issues and stuff with it, it's going to be a really solid build. Now, as far as my build is concerned, I'm pairing mine with a fire staff and going for a life stealing, obviously, leeching build. And we're seeing numbers anywhere between 50 and 75% of our damage return to us back as health. This thing has saved me so many times that I almost never want to run without it. It's so much fun. I'm going to show you guys today how the stats break down, what pieces of gear I'm running, and why I'm doing it, how to build the attributes up, and a little bit of the testing that we've done to show you guys how this thing actually works. Now, if you guys duplicate this build, I'd love to see what you guys change, what you guys find out. If you do more testing that we haven't seen yet, you know, let me know in the comments what you've done. And if you want to come hang out with us live over on twitch.tv/iLangston, we're live almost every day around 6 p.m. East Coast time. We'd love to have you, all right? Now, let's jump into it, okay? With this build, the Void Vampire build, there's a few things that you need to focus on getting out the gate that are just going to immediately set you up for success. Okay, without going into any stats or anything like that, the first thing that you're going to need, and probably the most crucial piece, is going to be a charm. It's going to be a crafting mod. It's called a Steel Void Gauntlet Charm. There's two of them, but I'll link the one that you need above. You need it to have the perk called Voracious Blade. Okay, now the asterisk to go along with this is you cannot randomly craft this, to my knowledge, onto a piece of gear. Okay, so if you're randomly crafting gear trying to get this perk, I don't think it's in the pool to get put onto a piece of gear. So if you go to your trading post and look for the Steel Void Gauntlet Charm, there's two of them. Find the one that has Voracious Blade and force it onto a piece of gear. Hopefully you get a better roll than I do. I got skinning luck, yay. But, I mean, as far as Dex Con is concerned, the stat breakdown's not too bad, so we went ahead and rolled with it. It's $5.95. And what this perk's going to do is if you drop below half health, it's immediately going to trigger, and all of your Void Blade ability hits are going to do 30% of your damage back as health. Okay, so that's huge. Now, what you're going to do is pair this with two life-stealing perks. Okay, first one you can get on your weapon itself. You can get you a Void Gauntlet. It's called Life-Stealing. This is 5% of your damage back as health. Okay. The next piece is a different name, same perk though. But if you look for a ring with leeching, you're looking at another 5%. So you get 30 when you're below half health, and you get 10 across the board. That's just out the gate. Super easy, 3 pieces, you're set, ready to go. Now, the way that this whole build works, and I'm going to have to keep improving on mine, is you need to scale this weapon and do as much damage as possible if you're going intelligence based. If you're going as a mage, you need to get your int stat or your focus stat as high as you possibly can, because those are going to be the two stats that scale this weapon. Okay, we'll dive into that in a second. Since we're on this page, I'll go ahead and show you the gear that I'm running. The other void, the steel void gauntlet charm that you can get will give you this perk right here called Nullifying Oblivion. It's not necessary for the build, but it does kind of help whenever you're doing PvP, because it's going to remove the buffs from the enemies, which will kind of slow them down or remove a lot of their perks. So you can grab that. I threw mine on a Dryad helmet because I wanted to have more con. I usually like to get around 150 con to get my health pull up to close to 11k, just so that way I have a little bit more, you know, of a gap, a little bit more of a cushion whenever I'm fighting something. Okay, this will help eliminate a lot of or give you more margin for error. Now, the next piece is the reinforced infused leather coat that I crafted. Force the voracious blade onto that. Okay, my hands I got from the PvP vendor in Windsward called the Syndicate Alchemist hand covers, the gloves. Just to get resilient, which will make sure you don't get crit as often, and refreshing to drop some of your cooldowns, and you can actually force int con stats onto that. I picked up a cheap pair of legs as well to supplement my fire staff and giving me 30% more additional damage with my fireball. And I got int dex on that one, and then I picked up this bad boy. We get 10 strength, which is kind of a throwaway perk, but since it's legendary, it's got enough dex to kind of make up for that. And we got really good perks on it. We got refreshing, resilient, and refreshing pillar of fire. So our fire staff has the 2 big perks. Our void gauntlet has the 2 big perks, and we're good to go. Now, the few pieces of gear that I can probably fix going forward, and maybe get like an all-int amulet. This would be a good upgrade if I can get this all-int. We tested Divine. Divine is worded as 9% more health from all incoming healing effects, which does not work with this build. Divine only works with a healer healing you, so outside heals, okay? It's not going to work with any of the lifesteal stuff, so don't be tricked by Divine. The second piece is going to be probably my earring. I'm going to upgrade that in the future. It does have refreshing, which was good. That's why we kept it, but if I can get that to be all int as well, that paired with some 40 int food, which I don't have, will probably get us a lot closer to 300 int and make us hit a lot harder. Now, the reason that I'm so focused on getting my int higher is because of the way these abilities work. So let's go through this real quick. First and foremost, the 3 that I went with is Void Blade, Oblivion, and then the one behind my camera here is called Essence Rupture. Okay? Now, let's go with Essence Rupture first. This ability right here is a projectile which launches from your gauntlet out to the enemy, and if it hits them, all of your damage done to that target, you get 20% of that back as health. So you get an immediate 20% on top of your 40% if you're below 50. If you're below half health, you get 20 from this, 30 from Voracious Blade, 5 from your gauntlet, 5 from your ring. Okay? Next is going to be Oblivion. This is something you drop on the ground, and the reason this is so important is because it gives you Empower, which is going to increase your damage by 20%. Okay? The higher the damage, the more heals you get back. All right, and the last ability that I go with is Void Blade. This is the bread and butter of the entire build, and this thing does so much all at one time, it's crazy. The way this works is it turns your long-range Void Gauntlet into a melee weapon for close-range encounters. Okay? Now, what this does is every time you hit the target, you're going to put a dot on them, and you can stack it 3 times. That's going to do damage over time. And then you can pair it with Fortified Blade, which is going to increase your tankiness by 20%. You get an increased damage absorption by 20% for 5 seconds. So you're tanky, you're putting a dot on them. You can pair it with Vicious Void to increase your crit, which I'll explain why is very important in a second. And then you can also get Leeching Blade. This is another heal. So if you do heavy attacks with this, you get another 5% life stealing. Okay? Now this scales exclusively with focus, but it does still give you an increase to healing. Yes, I'm not AFK. I am here talking. Now, there's a few little bubbles here that are very, very crucial. Earlier, I mentioned increased crit, and the reason this is so important is this right here. Leeching Agony. On crit, if you crit with the Void Blade, you gain an additional 15% of your damage back as health, on top of all the other stuff. So what I like to do with the Leeching Agony is I like to try to get 50 dexterity. And the reason is because it increases your crit by 5%. That's why I have a little bit of dex gear. So if you can get this first bubble right here, it'll help you out a ton. So leeching agony is huge. You can do other stuff like leeching bolts. This will make your ranged attacks increase additional damage by 30% if they're below 50% health. You know, that might heal you a little bit more, but honestly, the big ones that you need to get is Essence Rupture. You need to make sure that you have leeching agony, and you need to have Void Collar. Now, Void Collar is the final perk on the Annihilation Tree, and what this does is when you hit somebody 6 times with the Void Blade, what it's going to do is put an AoE heal around you. What's crazy about this is this will heal you for 30% of your weapon damage per second for 5 seconds. So you get 5 ticks of whatever your Void Gauntlet weapon damage is. Okay? Now, this number right here scales with int and with focus. So we have a lot of improvement that we can do here. We're only at 220. We can do 40 int food to get to 260, and we can replace those 2 pieces of gear on top of some other pieces of gear. We can take 5 from dex, and we could probably get 300. I think if we get a little bit better gear, we can get to 300, which will probably put this somewhere over 1,000. Okay? So you're going to get... What is that? 200? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You're gonna get 200. You're gonna get 200 heals per second for 5 seconds while in there. On top of the fact that you're getting 30% of your damage while you're below half health. You're getting 5% from the ring. You're getting 5% from your Void Gauntlet. You are getting 15% every time you crit. You are getting 20% if they're attached to Essence Rupture. You see where I'm going with this? There are so many things that are going to add up to make this thing just constantly just feeding you damage back. It's crazy. I'm going to throw on screen a little bit of our dueling content as far as when we were testing for damage numbers, so you can see a little bit of how this thing moves. All right, so for this part, I did roughly 6 tests against a buddy of mine, where we would deplete my health as low as possible, and then I would use my abilities and wail on him to see how much damage we did and how much healing we received. So each duel I would get as low as possible, hit him with Rupture, drop Oblivion, and then just wail on him until he was dead. And in the bottom part of this chart right here, you can see the duels that I did against him. He had about 11.1k health, and I would start each duel with roughly 1658. And then we would measure that against how much health I ended with to see what the overall heals were. The really cool thing about this is each duel yielded almost 50% of the damage healed. Now that's about what I was expecting. Most of the time, when you're below 50% health, you're going to see a much higher percent healed per hit. But overall, you should roughly see close to 50% of your damage back as health. So the more that we can scale this weapon with int, I think we're going to see much higher healing numbers, which will be really, really cool. Now the top part of this chart that I have here is a different set of duels that I didn't record, but it was individual hits against a buddy of mine. Pretty much the same process, where I would just drop down below 50% health, and I would just hit him one time. All of them were crits, so we were able to use all the perks that are on the far left to see how much we actually would heal for. And below 50% health, almost every single hit registered near 75% of the damage back as health. So this build is cranking out some wild heals. I think if you got a pocket healer, I don't know exactly how you would go down. In most cases, I typically don't. The only fights that I usually lost in this are if I was zerged. Like if you're an outpost rush and you get caught by a bunch of Great Axe Hammer users, or in a war or something like that. Stun meta is pretty commonly used as a counter against something like this, because if you're not hitting, you're not healing. But if you can learn how to dodge and get really effective with that kind of stuff, you can pull some pretty cool plays off with that. So you guys should try this out. Let me know what you guys think as well. All right, and then we pulled it over into PvE, and this is Lazarus, one of the in-game dungeons, and we're going up against Ancients here, which Void does very, very well, but I wanted to switch up the build a little bit, so I dropped the Fire Staff, and I paired this with an ice gauntlet,
have any decks, so
and
it's
it's pretty mana intensive. So if you're gonna do this build, one of the main things that I would recommend is make sure you have at minimum 200 intellect, because there's a bubble in the attribute page for 200 intellect to give you 10 mana every time you dodge, which you're gonna have to do this build. Otherwise, you're gonna be drinking mana potions every 10 seconds. So,
Dude, putting them in the
as you can see here,
Oblivion
it's definitely a
and
numbers
ice stone.
generator. It's probably one of the most fun builds that I've had inside of Lazarus, because you could just drop some AoE and then just jump in there and go to town, and like your health just doesn't move. Especially if your healer's on point, you're very unlikely to die.
have you tried streaming at
I think during most of this run too, our healer ended up going DPS. Like you can see his Void Gauntlet ability right there. So we were doing double Void, and he got to the point where he didn't really have to heal too much, so he was kind of in the fray with us, which is really cool. But yeah, that's the Void Gauntlet Vampire build. This thing is, I think this is one of the more unique builds that brings a lot of fun and intuitive gameplay back into New World. You know what I mean? So if you guys are looking for a new build to try out, something to bring a little flavor into your life, grab one of these, get you Voracious Blade, and throw that spec together, see what you get. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button for me. It helps with the algorithm to promote the video and the channel. If you guys want to hit a sub button to get notifications for new videos, that would be great too. And most importantly, if you guys will come hang out with us over on Twitch, you can come to twitch.tv/iLangston. We'd love to see you over there. And as always, man, you guys be kind to yourself and be kind to others. See you on the next one. Peace.
Oh, that's not good. My stuff is broken.
repair it.
Did I just apply another? No, okay.